Greetings, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to the Kamado Joe cooking channel. Today I'm going to show you a little bit of a maintenance tip that some of you might come across. I'm going to show you how to replace the gaskets on your Kamado Joe grill. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing that I've done here to prepare for this process is I have removed the firebox and the fire ring, and I took my shop vac and just vacuumed out most of the ash debris that was left behind here. Okay, we're going to get started by removing the bottom gasket. Some of it may pull up okay, some of it may not. If not, take a utility knife and score across it to cut the gasket material loose. Just like this, and then you'll be able to pull that back. And now we are going to work our way around the Joe and pull as much of that loose as we can. If you've got a paint scraper or a little razor blade scraper, you may want to go right behind it, just like that, and we're going to pull that off and work all the way around. After we've removed the gasket on the bottom side, we're going to repeat the process on the top. I'm going to cut that gasket loose with my box cutter or my utility knife, and then we're going to work all the way around and pull that gasket off. After we get the gasket removed from the body and the dome lid, I'm going to pop my top vent cap off, and we're going to take the gasket off that is on the top vent also. We're going to cut right through that with our utility knife, just like we did before, and we're going to pull that loose and work that piece of gasket around too. After you have your gasket material removed, you'll notice that there's some left behind. What I would like to do here is I've got a little small wire brush on the end of my drill, and I'm just going to go around lightly with that to remove the rest of that material. Okay, after I've got that all removed, I'm going to take my plastic bristle brush and brush down the inside of the base and the dome to get all that material that's kind of collected there pushed down to the bottom. Okay, the next step is these surfaces where I've pulled off the old gasket, we want to clean those. So I've got an old rag here, and I'm going to use a little acetone to go over these surfaces and remove any left behind adhesive, and let that dry for a few minutes. Okay, the first thing we're going to do now that we have all our surfaces cleaned is we're going to replace the top gasket on the Big Joe. Here's what I'm working with today. The Big Joe and the Classic both have the same size dome lid, so you're going to want to cut off a strip of your gasket material that's about 2 feet long, and then peel the gasket backing material back to it, expose the adhesive, and then work your way around, replacing the gasket material in the same location that the previous material was. And when you get back around to your starting edge, you're going to peel back a little bit of this material and press it down, and just take a pair of scissors and trim that off and press it down flush, and then give this guy an extra press to make sure that your adhesive is sticking very well. Okay, now that we're ready to do the base, I have taken the remaining part of my gasket material and I have folded it over double to find the center point. And once we've located the center point, I'm going to cut that in half where I have 2 equal sized pieces. And then we're going to start peeling back our backing material again so we can expose the adhesive on this gasket material. And we're going to start, I'm going to start from the back, but I'm not going to start in the absolute middle. I'm going to offset these a little bit. So we're going to start this one right about here. and we're going to work our way around. And as you're pulling this gasket around, do not pull it to stretch it. You actually want to make sure that it's not stretching the material. In fact, you probably want to try to compress it a little bit as you go. You don't want to stretch this, and we're going to work this all the way around the dome, or all the way around the top of the base. Okay, as I get near the end here, I'm going to pull the rest of my backing material off and set it aside and bring my gasket right up to the edge of where we started here. I'm going to let that overlap there just a tad, and then I'm going to take my scissors and trim it off so that there's a little excess there, and if I need to, I am going to trim that off a little bit with my utility knife. But I think that's going to be just about perfect right there. Now we are going to repeat the process on the dome lid. When I start applying my gasket on the dome lid, I'm going to offset the gap from where we started on the lower piece so they don't overlap. And then I'm just going to slowly work my way all the way around the dome lid. And when we get back around to our beginning point, we're going to do the same thing that we did below. I'm going to bring that edge of the gasket right up to where we started, and then I'm going to trim that off with a pair of scissors. If you've got a sharp pair of scissors, unlike me, you'll do a lot better there. And once again, we're going to come around and press that gasket down and make sure that we've got a good seal on it. And then we're going to close the lid and let the grill sit for about an hour or so to give that adhesive a chance to set up. Sometimes when you replace your gasket, up on the front side of the grill there may be a gap, a little air gap here that forms because of the thickness of the new gasket. It hasn't happened here on my Big Joe, but if that does happen, that's not abnormal. Don't worry about that. It will settle in, and it just takes it a little bit of time with the pressure of the lid to settle it in. So now we're going to replace the firebox, the fire ring inside of the grill and move on to the final step. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Kamado Joe fire starter. I put my old charcoal back in here. We're going to light the fire starter up and open the top vent fully and open the bottom vent fully and let the grill temperature come up to 350 degrees. Okay, after I've got my fire going, I have closed the lid. I've got the top vent and the bottom vent on this grill fully open, and we're going to let this temperature climb up to 350 degrees with both vents fully open. And also, now that I've closed this lid's going to stay closed. We're not going to open it again for this entire process. And once our grill gets to 350 degrees, we are going to close the bottom vent and the top vents fully and let this grill sit for a minimum of 12 hours to let the heat absorb into those new gaskets and make sure that adhesive is really going to stay solidly in place. So that's all there is to replacing the gaskets on a Kamado Joe. This is my Big Joe, and I've had this grill for a little over 18 months, and I've done, I'm guessing, somewhere over 200 cooks on this grill. And the gaskets that I just took off of here didn't really need replacing. They were still in good shape, but this is a very easy process to do. If I'd not been shooting a video on this, I would estimate my actual work time on replacing these gaskets somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. It's really an easy process. The gaskets that come standard on your Kamado Joe grills are very high quality. They're not going to need replacing very frequently at all with regular use. There are a couple of things that happen that cause damage to the gaskets that can cause you to have to replace them more frequently, and one of the most common things I see that causes that is if somebody spills something like barbecue sauce or drips a lot of grease from their cooks on their gaskets, that can damage the gaskets. Barbecue sauce is especially dangerous. If you spill sauce on your gasket, when you close the lid and the grill cools, that sugar in that sauce will stick together, stick the top and the bottom gaskets together, and when you open the lid again, it will rip the gaskets loose. High temperature cooking for like steaks and pizzas can sometimes cause some damage. I'm not going to say it happens very often. I've never had it happen, but the flames inside the grill come up the outside edge and can singe your gaskets. And if there is any grease buildup in your gaskets, like I mentioned before, it can set the gasket on fire, can cause that to need a replacement. But once again, it's something that I've never had happen. It does happen though. I've seen it happen. I've seen people posting online about it happening. So you're not going to have to do that very often, but if you do, this is the procedure that you want to follow. It's very easy. There's not a lot to it. So until next time, this is John Setzler with Kamado Joe Cooking Channel.